Hallo meine lieben Zuschauer, bonjour à tous, привет всем and welcome back to my channel. So today I have a little story for you and it's about how I became a polyglot. This story starts all the way back in Riga, Latvia, where I was born. And I grew up speaking Latvian and English since I was a little baby. Why English? I'll get to that in a little second. But first of all, in Latvia, obviously, I grew up speaking Latvian. And when I was about 3, we went to Australia. And up until I was 7, we traveled back and forth between Latvia and Australia. And so I went to school in both countries and hence grew up speaking both languages at a native level. And my first contact sort of as a multilingualist or bilingual person was when I was in kindergarten and we could take our favorite book to school. And at the time my favorite book was a little English book about bears and a picnic. And everyone else at school had all Latvian books and I was this kid with this little book in a different language and I had to translate for everybody else at like the age of 3 or 4 or something. Anyway. And then I moved to Australia permanently when I was about 7 and I still had all of my Latvian books and everything and so I continued using them and you know on the weekends when other people were playing sport I had all these language books and I was just always a curious child and I loved reading and so at school I would always take language books, for example, from the library. You know, every Friday I would take them home and my best friend in primary school was from Serbia and every time I would hear her speaking Serbian with her family, I would ask, oh, how do you say hello? How do you say goodbye? How would you say this? Because her grandmother couldn't speak English, and so I always just wanted to be able to communicate with everyone. And I think that's really the crux of it all. That's what it all comes down to, that communication is what our world is based on. And communication stems from languages. You know, we communicate with each other through speech, through language. And the more languages I could speak or the more that I knew in other languages, the more I could build relationships with other people and communicate with them better. And that was probably the biggest thing of why I fell in love with languages. So at school in Australia, every primary school has a foreign language that you learn. And at my school it was Spanish. And at the time my mother was studying Spanish at university and so she had a whole bunch of Spanish books as well. And we would practice with each other as we would walk home and I would tell her about all the new phrases and all the new words that I'd learnt and, you know, show off all of my skills. And then she met my stepfather, and my stepfather is from Peru. So they would speak in Spanish together, and my Spanish wasn't that good yet, and I really, really wanted it to improve. So I would continue asking all these questions, studying all these books that my mum had, and just until my Spanish got to a fluent level. And then when I was 10, I had this phase of where I was obsessed with Japanese, everything Japanese. We would go to Japanese restaurants for my birthday because I wanted to feel like a Japanese person. And I even wanted to get my eyes operated, but that's another story. Yeah, and so my pen pal at the time was a girl called Mami from Japan. And once again, I just found it really, really cool that speaking that language opened up this whole new door to a different culture and a different world, and I really wanted to be a part of that. So I would watch Love Hina on the weekend and learn all the characters in my spare time, and I did that with practically every language. So then when I was 12, I started learning French and would borrow all these books from the library and spend just my whole weekend learning languages and sitting in the library and just doing everything that was language related. And then I got to high school, and in high school we could choose 2 languages to study. And so English, of course, in Australia was, you know, the native language, so that was a subject in itself. And then I chose Spanish and French. And because I had already studied those languages previously, I went up a grade. So when I was in year 9, I was doing year 10 French and Spanish. And that wasn't, of course, enough for me. So when I was in year 9, I started building this interest for German. I don't know why, but I just fell in love with everything German. I fell in love with the people, the culture, the food. I think because it was just so similar to the Latvian culture, and I don't know, I just fell in love with it. And so I started teaching myself once again. And then in year 10, I went straight into the continuous stream and picked it up from there. And then in year 12, I did French and German at university. So when I was 16, I got a scholarship to go to university and study those 2 languages. and it just went on from there. Yeah, so last year then I started learning Russian and Italian, and the reason I picked up Russian was, I've explained this already in one of my other videos, but the main reason was because my parents could speak Russian as I was growing up, and as I mentioned, I had taught myself the alphabet, but I really, really wanted to speak it, and I came to a point where I was like, no, 5 languages just aren't enough, let's pick up 2 more. And so I started learning it in my second semester in Mannheim, and then I met my boyfriend who also speaks Russian, and so and so that gave me even more incentive, and I started watching movies and reading books. I got all these different Russian books and would just practice as much as I could with him and my mum. And then I did Italian at university this year, and now we're here and I'm learning my 7th language, and I definitely want to pick up Japanese and Arabic as my next languages. So make sure that you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to see more of my language journey with a lot more languages to come. So if you are a polyglot or are learning languages, make sure to write down in the comments below what languages you speak, why you started learning them, and which one you would like to learn next. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching my video. Ciao!
Пересекаются наши взгляды, одежда на полу, все как надо.